My name is Brooke Adams. I am 32 years old, and I never thought I would have to call the police on my own parents. 3 years ago, I purchased my dream home after years of hard work and saving every penny. My relationship with my parents has always been strained, especially because they clearly favored my younger sister, Chloe. But nothing could have prepared me for the day they showed up at my doorstep with a moving truck, ready to pack up my life without my consent. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, this story might resonate with you. It's a story about finding the strength to draw a line in the sand, even when the people on the other side are your own family. It's about the painful, beautiful process of learning that self-respect isn't selfish, it's survival. Growing up in the leafy, rain-washed suburbs of Portland, Oregon, I always felt like I was living in the shadow of a sunnier, more celebrated world, my sister Chloe's world. My parents, Helen and David Adams, never explicitly said she was their favorite, but their actions were a language I learned to translate from a very young age. Chloe is 5 years younger than me, and from the moment she arrived, a bundle of bright smiles and easy charm, it was clear she was the golden child. I was just Brooke. Our childhood home was a comfortable, if unassuming, split level on a quiet cul-de-sac. My father was a civil engineer for the city, a man of blueprints and right angles, while my mother was a librarian, a woman who found order and comfort in the Dewey Decimal System. We had enough. A modest 4-bedroom house, a reliable sedan, summer vacations to the Oregon coast. There was enough love, enough money, enough attention to go around, had they chosen to distribute it evenly. They did not. I remember my 10th birthday vividly. I received a refurbished Schwinn bicycle my father had painstakingly fixed up in the garage. The paint was a slightly uneven shade of blue, and the vinyl seat was cracked, but I was genuinely grateful for the effort. 5 years later, for Chloe's 10th birthday, she received a brand new, shimmering pink Huffy with a white basket and streamers on the handlebars. When I quietly pointed out the difference, my mother simply smoothed my hair and said, "Chloe is just a bit more sensitive, honey. You've always been so strong. You understand, don't you?" And I did. I understood that my strength meant I was expected to absorb disappointments that Chloe was deemed too fragile to handle. I understood that my feelings were secondary. High school was an extension of the same theme. When I wanted to attend a competitive summer science program at Reed College, I was told it was a wonderful goal, but one I'd have to fund myself. I spent evenings and weekends stocking shelves at the local New Seasons market, the scent of organic produce clinging to my clothes. But when Chloe wanted to go to a theater camp in Ashland, my parents didn't hesitate. "Your sister needs these experiences to build her confidence," my father explained, as if my own confidence was a self-sustaining resource. And so, out of necessity, I became even more self-sufficient. I buried myself in my studies, applied for every scholarship I could find, and was determined to build a life that didn't depend on their conditional support. I was accepted to several good schools, but chose the University of Oregon, where a generous merit scholarship eased the financial burden. Even so, I worked 2 part-time jobs and took out loans to cover the rest. Meanwhile, my parents proudly paid Chloe's full tuition at a private liberal arts college, where she changed her major 3 times before graduating in 5 years with a degree in communications. I graduated with honors in 3.5 years with a degree in business and marketing. I landed an entry-level position at Vanguard Creative, a rising marketing firm in downtown Portland. The pay was modest, but it was a start. I shared a cramped apartment in the Hawthorne district with 2 roommates and poured myself into my work. Every late night, every challenging project, every promotion was a brick I laid myself in the foundation of my independence. Within 5 years, I was a senior marketing manager. 3 years after that, I became the youngest creative director in the company's history. All those years I saved. I lived simply, drove a used car, and tracked every dollar. I had a singular, shimmering goal, a place of my own, a sanctuary that no one could diminish or take away from me. When I was 29, I finally had enough for a down payment on a beautiful 1920s craftsman bungalow in Lake Oswego. It wasn't large, but it was perfect. It had dark hardwood floors that creaked with character, a sun-drenched breakfast nook, and a small, private backyard with climbing roses and hydrangeas. The day my realtor handed me the keys, I stood alone in the empty living room, the scent of old wood and fresh paint in the air, and I cried. They were tears of pure, unadulterated joy and pride. This was mine. All mine. I invited my parents and Chloe to my housewarming party. They walked through the rooms, their expressions mildly impressed. "It's lovely, Brooke," my mother said, running a hand over the quartz countertop I'd agonized over for weeks. "But isn't it a bit much for just one person?" There it was. Not "congratulations" or "we're so proud of you," but a subtle questioning of my achievement, a hint that my single life didn't warrant such a space. Chloe had met her husband, Liam, during her senior year of college. He came from a well-off family that owned Sterling Development, a major construction firm in the region. They married in a lavish ceremony at a winery in the Willamette Valley, a wedding my parents contributed to generously. I was a bridesmaid, smiling for photos in a sage green dress, trying to feel happy for her while the familiar sting of the double standard pricked at my heart. For the next few years, I poured my love and energy into my home. I renovated the kitchen, painted the walls in soft, calming shades of gray and blue, and filled the space with furniture I'd carefully chosen. One of the spare bedrooms became my home office, a bright, organized space where my creativity could flourish. The other became a cozy guest room. My house was my sanctuary, the one place on earth where I wasn't being measured against my sister. Then, 2 months ago, the ground began to shift. My mother called to invite me to Sunday dinner, a rare occurrence outside of major holidays. When I arrived, Chloe and Liam were already there, their faces glowing. Before the salad was even served, they made their announcement. Chloe was pregnant. My parents were over the moon. My mother wept with joy, and my father opened a bottle of expensive champagne, sparkling cider for Chloe, of course. The rest of the evening was a blur of baby talk and grand plans for the grandchild. I offered my sincere congratulations, but I couldn't help but notice how the news of my recent promotion, which I'd shared earlier, was now a forgotten footnote. I didn't know it then, but that happy announcement was the first tremor before the earthquake that would shake the very foundation of my life. About a week after the pregnancy announcement, my father called. "Brooke," he began, his tone casual, "how many bedrooms did you say you had in that little bungalow of yours?" "3," I replied, stirring a pot of soup on my stove. "My room, my office, and the guest room." "Why?" "Oh, just curious," he said vaguely. "Your mother and I were just talking about how much space you have there, all for yourself." The comment hung in the air, a strange little cloud of implication. I brushed it off, but a seed of unease had been planted. A few days later, my mother called. The news was delivered in a hushed, dramatic tone. Liam had been laid off. His father's company, Sterling Development, was downsizing due to a major contract falling through, and apparently, nepotism wasn't enough to save his position. "It's just terrible timing with the baby on the way," my mother lamented. "They're so worried about their finances." I expressed my sympathy, but I was privately skeptical. Liam's family was wealthy, and Chloe had a decent job as a social media manager for a boutique PR firm. Surely they weren't on the verge of destitution. "Well," my mother lowered her voice conspiratorially, "they've been living a little beyond their means. That luxury apartment in the Pearl District costs a fortune, and they have, well, quite a bit of credit card debt." This was news to me. Chloe and Liam's Instagram feeds were a curated gallery of financial health, weekend trips to Bend, expensive dinners, designer clothes. A flicker of irritation went through me. While I had been meticulously saving and making responsible choices, they had been living an extravagant lie. I kept the thought to myself. The calls about Chloe's predicament became a regular feature of my week. Each conversation with my parents seemed to circle back to my extra space, or how lucky I was to have my house. I started to see the path they were clearing, but I held on to the hope that I was just being cynical. Then came the first direct approach, delivered by my father. "You know, Brooke, your sister and Liam are really in a bind. That guest room of yours, it would make a perfect nursery." I took a slow, Deep breath. Dad, are you suggesting that Chloe and Liam move into my house? Well, it would just be temporary, he said quickly, as if anticipating my objection. Just until they get back on their feet. It's the sensible solution. You have all that room, and they need help. Family helps family. I use that space, I said, my voice tight. The guest room is for when friends visit, and my office is essential for my work, especially since I often work from home. But you could easily move your office into the guest room and let them have your master bedroom, he suggested, as if this were a minor inconvenience. It has the ensuite bathroom, which would be so much better for them with the baby. I ended the call feeling dizzy and immediately dialed my best friend, Audrey. We'd been friends since college, and she was the one person who truly understood my family's unique brand of dysfunction. They want you to give up your master bedroom? Audrey's voice was incredulous. In your own house? The one you paid for. Apparently so, I sighed, pacing my living room. And the way he said temporary made it sound like it could mean anything from 6 months to 6 years. You have to shut this down, Brooke. Hard and fast, Audrey advised. If you give them an inch, they will take your entire house. I knew she was right, but confrontation with my family always felt like walking into a hurricane. Years of being the understanding one had conditioned me to avoid making waves. But this was my home. My sanctuary. The line had to be drawn here. The next time my mother called with another sob story about Chloe's search for an affordable 2-bedroom apartment, I took the plunge. Mom, I need to be clear. I feel for what Chloe and Liam are going through, and I want to help. But them moving into my house is not an option. There was a long, cold silence on the other end. I see, my mother finally said, her voice dripping with ice. So you're just going to turn your back on your own sister when she's pregnant and in need? That's not what I said, I replied, my voice shaking slightly. I'm happy to help them look for a place. I could even help with a security deposit. But living together is not the answer. I never thought you could be so selfish, she snapped. Chloe would do it for you in a heartbeat. The conversation devolved from there, a masterclass in guilt and manipulation. I hung up feeling sick to my stomach, but also resolute. This was my home. My boundary. I had a right to it. Despite my clear refusal, Chloe began stopping by my house more frequently. Each visit felt less like a social call and more like a scouting mission. She'd wander from room to room, making comments. This guest room gets such lovely morning light. It would be perfect for a nursery. Or, standing in my master bedroom, I just love this bay window. I can picture a rocking chair right here. During one particularly grating visit, she walked into my office while I was trying to work. This room has such a great vibe, she said, running her hand over my desk. I could totally see a changing table right here. Chloe, I said, turning in my chair to face her. I have already told Mom and Dad that you and Liam cannot move in here. I need this space. This is my home. Her eyes immediately filled with tears, a tactic she had weaponized since childhood. I can't believe you're being like this, she whispered, her hand instinctively going to her still flat stomach. I'm pregnant, Brooke. Don't you care about your niece or nephew at all? Of course I care, I said, my patience wearing thin. But caring for my future niece or nephew doesn't mean I have to surrender my home. She left in a dramatic huff. Within the hour, I received furious texts from both my parents, accusing me of making their pregnant, hormonal daughter cry. The pressure was immense, a coordinated emotional siege. But I held my ground. I had no idea they weren't just trying to change my mind anymore. They were about to change the locks. It was a Saturday morning in early June, one of those rare Portland days where the sun was out in full force. I was enjoying a quiet morning, coffee in hand, planning to spend the afternoon in my garden. Around 10 a.m., my doorbell rang. I opened the door to find 2 delivery men standing on my porch next to a large, flat-packed box. Delivery for Adams, one of them said, checking a clipboard. We've got a crib and a changing table for delivery and assembly. I stared at them, completely bewildered. I'm sorry, there must be a mistake. I didn't order any baby furniture. The delivery man frowned and checked his paperwork again. This is 1245 Rosewood Lane, right? Delivery for Adams. Yes, this is my address, and I'm Brooke Adams, but I definitely didn't order this. He turned the clipboard around. The purchaser was listed as Chloe Roberts, but the delivery address was, without a doubt, mine. The blood drained from my face. This wasn't a mistake. This was a move. A deliberate, calculated move to force my hand. "I'm so sorry," I told the men, my voice trembling. "There's been a huge misunderstanding. This delivery was not authorized. You'll have to take it back." They looked confused but agreed. As they loaded the boxes back onto their truck, I called the customer service number on the order form. A representative confirmed that the order had been placed 3 weeks ago by Chloe Roberts, with explicit instructions for delivery and assembly at my address. My hands were shaking as I hung up the phone. This was premeditated. Chloe had ordered furniture to my house, assuming that once it was here, I would be forced to capitulate. I tried calling her, my parents, Liam. All of their phones went straight to voicemail. The coordinated silence was deafening. As I paced my living room, a text from my mother came through. "We'll be by around noon. We have something important to discuss." I replied instantly, "Did you know Chloe had baby furniture delivered to my house today?" No response. By noon, I was a knot of anxiety and fury. I heard the unmistakable rumble of a large vehicle pulling into my driveway. I looked out the window and my heart stopped. It wasn't my parents' sedan. It was a U-Haul truck. A big one. Behind it, Liam's SUV pulled in, with him and Chloe inside. I stepped onto my porch, my arms crossed tightly over my chest, as my parents climbed out of the truck's cab. "What is going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking. My mother approached me, a bright, brittle smile plastered on her face. "Surprise. We're here to help you move." Move. I repeated, the word feeling foreign and absurd in my mouth. "Move where?" "Well, your father and I have been thinking," she said, her tone condescendingly sweet. "Since Chloe and Liam need more space for the baby, and you have this big house all to yourself, we found you a lovely little microloft in the Pearl District. It's perfect for a single person like you." I stood there, speechless. The audacity of it was a physical blow. They weren't just trying to move Chloe in. They were planning to move me out. "It makes perfect sense," my father chimed in, walking to the back of the U-Haul and sliding up the door to reveal stacks of empty boxes and packing tape. "The loft is furnished, so you just need your personal things. We can have you packed up today and settled in by tonight. And then we can start setting up the nursery," Chloe added, waddling up the driveway with a proprietary air. "I already have so many ideas for the paint colors." "This is my house," I finally managed to say, my voice rising with disbelief. "I bought it. With my money. You can't just decide to move me out." "Don't be so selfish, Brooke," my mother chided. "Your sister needs a proper home for her baby. You don't need all this space." "It's not about what I need," I shot back, my voice gaining strength. "It's about what is mine. I worked for this house. I saved for years while Chloe and Liam were racking up credit card debt. Their financial irresponsibility is not my crisis to solve." "Family helps family," my father said sternly, the phrase now sounding like a threat. "Chloe would do the same for you." "No, she wouldn't," I said, the truth of it sharp and clear. "And even if she would, that doesn't give any of you the right to make this decision for me." My protests were like rain against a windowpane. My father began unloading boxes onto my lawn. My mother brushed past me and went into my house as if she already owned it. Chloe followed her, chattering about where the crib would go. I stood on my own front porch, watching in horror as my family began the process of dismantling my life. The betrayal was a cold, sharp knife in my chest. But it also lit a fire. A deep, primal rage that I had never allowed myself to feel before. This was not just about a house anymore. It was about my life, my work, my right to exist as an individual separate from their demands. And I was not going to let them take it from me. I stormed into my house after them, my shock solidifying into a cold, hard resolve. My mother was in my kitchen, opening cabinets. "You can take these dishes, Brooke. Chloe can use the everyday set." My father was in the living room, wrapping my framed photos in newspaper. "Stop," I yelled, my voice cracking. "Stop it right now. You have no right to touch my things." "Don't be so dramatic," my mother said, not even looking at me. "We're helping you. The sooner we get this done, the sooner everyone can settle in." I am not moving, I said, planting my feet. This is my house. I did not agree to this. I want all of you to leave. Now. Liam had finally entered the house, looking deeply uncomfortable. He hovered by the door as the chaos swirled around him. Honey, my father said, using the patronizing tone that had defined my childhood, we've already put down the first month's rent and security deposit on the loft. It's a done deal. You paid for an apartment for me without my permission? I asked, aghast. Without me even seeing it? You're single. You work long hours, my mother interjected. Chloe and Liam are starting a family. They need a home. Then they should have saved for one. I shouted. Like I did. Chloe stepped forward, placing a hand on her belly. We can't afford to buy right now, Brooke. Not with Liam out of work and the baby coming. Why can't you just understand that we need this? I understand that you need help, I said, trying to steady my voice. What I don't understand is why you think you are entitled to my home. My property. The house that has my name, and only my name, on the deed. Because we are a family, my mother cried, as if this was the ultimate trump card. And in this family, we make sacrifices for each other. Sacrifices? I laughed, a harsh, broken sound. When have you ever made a sacrifice for me? I worked my way through college while you paid for every one of Chloe's 5 years. I saved every penny for this house while you funded her extravagant wedding. You haven't just favored her, you've enabled her. And now you expect me to hand over the single greatest achievement of my life to fix a mess she and Liam made for themselves. My mother gasped, clutching her chest. How dare you speak to us like that? After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done? The dam of years of resentment finally broke. You've done everything for her. And now you're literally trying to steal my house and give it to her. This isn't a sacrifice. This is a robbery. Through the front window, I saw my neighbors, the Hendersons, an elderly couple who always waved when I mowed my lawn, standing on their porch, watching the commotion with concern. My family was creating a public spectacle, but I was past the point of caring about appearances. My father, ignoring me completely, picked up a box of my books and started for the door. I moved to block him. Put that down. Brooke, stop being so difficult, he grunted, trying to sidestep me. I'm being difficult? I was practically screaming now. For wanting to live in my own house? My mother had gone upstairs. I heard a drawer slide open. I ran up the stairs to find her in my bedroom, sorting my clothes into piles on my bed. Get out, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Get out of my room. Get out of my house. All of you. We are just trying to help you, she insisted, folding one of my sweaters. I don't want your help, I said through gritted teeth. I want you to leave. Downstairs, the front door opened and closed. I looked out my bedroom window and saw my father carrying another box to the U-Haul. Chloe was standing in my backyard, pointing at my rose bushes, presumably telling Liam where she wanted to plant a vegetable garden. It was utterly surreal. They were operating in a parallel reality where my ownership of the property was a minor inconvenience, my consent an irrelevant formality. They were so steeped in their narrative of Chloe's needs and my endless capacity to give, they couldn't see the staggering violation they were committing. I walked back downstairs, a strange, cold calm settling over me. My rational arguments, my emotional pleas, my angry demands, none of it mattered. They were not going to stop. I looked at my father, who was now taping up another box. I looked at my mother, who was surveying my living room with the critical eye of a new owner. And I realized there was only one option left. I pulled my phone from my pocket and walked into the quiet of my kitchen. My fingers were trembling as I dialed the 3 numbers I never thought I'd use in my own home. 911, what is your emergency? I took a shaky breath. Hello. I need police assistance. My family is at my house, and they're trying to move me out without my permission. They've brought a moving truck and are packing my belongings. I've asked them to leave, and they are refusing. Are you in any immediate physical danger, ma'am? The dispatcher asked. No physical danger, I clarified. But they are trespassing and attempting to remove my property against my will. The dispatcher took my name, address, and a brief description of the situation. She told me officers were on their way and advised me to wait for them and avoid further confrontation. I walked back into the living room, my phone in my hand. My mother saw it. "Who were you calling?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. "The police," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I have asked you to leave my home multiple times, and you have refused. You are trespassing." A stunned silence fell over the room. Then, chaos erupted. "You called the police?" my mother shrieked, her face a mask of outrage. "On your own family? You can't be serious, Brooke," my father sputtered, his face turning a blotchy red. Chloe burst into loud, theatrical sobs. "How could you do this to me? To my baby?" "I have thought about it," I said, my heart pounding, but my voice firm. "You left me with no other choice. What you are doing is not just wrong, it's illegal. We are your parents," my father bellowed. "We are trying to help." "No," I said, the calm spreading through me. "You are trying to take what is mine and give it to someone else. That isn't help. It's theft." The 15 minutes it took for the police to arrive were the longest of my life. My family huddled together, whispering furiously. I stood apart, waiting. For the first time, I wasn't the accommodating daughter, the one who would bend until she broke. I was a woman defending her home. Finally, 2 police cruisers pulled up. A female officer and a male officer walked up my driveway. I met them at the door. "Good afternoon, ma'am," said the female officer, her name tag reading Madison. "We had a call about a disturbance?" "Yes, I called," I said. "These are my parents, my sister, and her husband. They showed up with a moving truck to move me out of my house against my will. I've asked them to leave, and they won't." The officers stepped inside, their presence immediately changing the atmosphere. They took in the scene, the boxes, the U-Haul visible through the window, my family's hostile glares. "Is this your residence, ma'am?" Officer Madison asked me. "Yes," I said. "I am the sole owner. My name is the only one on the deed and the mortgage." "That's true," my father admitted grudgingly when the officer looked at him. "But we're just trying to help our daughters." Officer Madison's expression was unreadable but firm. "Sir, regardless of your relationship, if the homeowner has asked you to leave her property, you are legally required to do so." "But we've already paid for a new apartment for her," my mother protested. "And my other daughter is pregnant. She needs this house." "Ma'am," the male officer, Reynolds, said patiently, "that is a civil matter between you. Legally, this is her house. She decides who stays and who goes." He turned to me. "Do you want to press charges for trespassing?" I hesitated. As furious and violated as I felt, the words felt too final. "No," I said. "Not right now. I just want them to put my things back, and I want them to leave." Officer Madison nodded. "All right," she said, turning to my family. "I'm going to have to ask all of you to vacate the premises immediately. And any property you've removed needs to be brought back inside." "This is outrageous," my father muttered. "It's the law, sir," Officer Reynolds replied. Chloe stepped forward, her face tear-streaked and furious. "You're choosing a house over your own sister," she accused me. "Over your own family." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of pity mixed with the anger. She had been so coddled, so catered to her whole life, that she genuinely could not comprehend a world where her wants weren't everyone's top priority. "I'm not choosing a house over you, Chloe," I said quietly. "I'm choosing me. I'm choosing to respect myself and the life I've built. There were 100 other ways to solve your problem that didn't involve taking my home." Under the watchful eyes of the police, my family sullenly began to return the boxes to my house. My father slammed them down on the floor. My mother alternated between crying and glaring at me. As they were finally leaving, my mother turned to me, her face etched with disappointment. "I never thought my own daughter could be so cold," she said. "To call the police on her family. What kind of person does that?" I met her gaze, my own sense of self finally solid beneath my feet. "The kind who has finally learned her worth," I replied. They drove away, the big U-Haul rumbling down my quiet street like a departing storm cloud. The officers stayed for a few more minutes. "You might want to consider changing your locks," Officer Reynolds suggested kindly. After they left, I stood alone in my living room, surrounded by the debris of the battle. The house was profoundly quiet. A deep, aching sadness washed over me, a grief for the family I wished I had. But beneath the sadness, there was something else. A small, unfamiliar spark. It was the feeling of a spine straightening after being bent for too long. It was the feeling of a boundary held. It was the feeling of self-respect, hard-won and fragile, but undeniably mine. This was my home. And for the first time, I had truly fought for it. The hours that followed my family's departure were a strange, hollow echo of the preceding chaos. I moved through my house in a daze, methodically unpacking the boxes they had so presumptuously packed. With each book returned to its shelf, each photo frame set back on the mantel, I felt like I was performing a ritual of reclamation. When everything was back in its place, I sank onto my couch, the emotional and physical exhaustion hitting me like a wave. Following Officer Reynolds' advice, I called a 24-hour locksmith. As he worked, drilling out the old locks and fitting new, more secure ones, the finality of my actions settled in. I was literally locking my family out. The thought brought a fresh wave of grief, but also a grim sense of necessity. The digital assault began that evening. My parents had clearly been busy, spinning their version of the day's events to our extended family. My phone lit up with texts. From my Aunt Linda, "Brooke, I am so disappointed in you. How could you be so cruel to Chloe in her time of need?" From my Uncle Robert, "Your parents raised you to be better than this." Calling the police is a shameful thing to do to family. One after another, the messages rolled in, each a small cut, none of them asking for my side of the story. I was tried and convicted in the court of family opinion. I turned off my phone, unable to bear the weight of their collective judgment. The next morning, the conflict went public. Chloe had posted a long, carefully worded lament on social media about her heartbreaking family situation. She wrote of her struggles, her pregnancy, and the pain of being turned away by the one person who had more than enough to share. She never mentioned the moving truck or the plan to evict me. She just painted a poignant picture of a heartless sister choosing property over her pregnant sibling. The post was flooded with sympathetic comments. "What a monster. Family is everything. Some people forget that. I'm praying for you, Chloe." Reading it made me physically ill. But amidst the deluge of condemnation, a few life rafts appeared. "This is certifiably insane," Audrey fumed over the phone after seeing the post. "They literally tried to steal your house, and now you're the villain? I'm coming over." She arrived an hour later with our friend Michael in tow, armed with pizza, a bottle of good Oregon Pinot Noir, and unwavering support. Their presence was a balm on my raw nerves. "I already left a comment setting the record straight," Michael said, scrolling through his phone. "Mentioned the U-Haul and everything. It's probably a drop in the bucket, but the truth needed to be there." "You did the right thing, Brooke," Audrey said, squeezing my hand. 100%. They gave you no choice." Sitting in my living room, surrounded by friends who saw the situation for what it was, I felt a flicker of my old self return. Their validation was an anchor in the storm of my family's narrative. A few days later, the harassment took a different, more bizarre turn. I received an email from my father. It was a spreadsheet, meticulously itemizing every conceivable expense they had ever incurred on my behalf, from a portion of the mortgage payments while I lived at home as a child to an estimated cost for the gasoline used to drive me to my college dorm. The final line read, "Since you have made it clear that family obligation means nothing to you, we consider this our final invoice. We expect repayment in full." It was so absurd, so profoundly petty, that I almost laughed. They were billing me for my own childhood. But the laughter died in my throat, replaced by a deep, aching sorrow. The situation forced me to take a week of leave from work after my parents started calling my office, trying to get through to me. I decided to take a more formal step. On the advice of a lawyer friend of Audrey's, I had a cease and desist letter drafted and sent to my parents, Chloe and Liam. It formally requested that they stop all contact, including calls to my workplace and defamatory social media posts. Sending it felt like severing the final thread, but it was a necessary act of self-preservation. The letter worked. The direct harassment stopped. But the silence that followed was just as loud. In the quiet that followed, I began the real work of healing. I found a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Evans who specialized in family systems. In our sessions, I started to unravel the complex tapestry of my family dynamics. What you're describing is a classic golden child and scapegoat dynamic, she explained. From a young age, Chloe was cast as the one to be protected and cherished, the golden child. You, as the strong one, were cast as the scapegoat, the one expected to carry burdens, absorb disappointments, and sacrifice for the good of the family system, which was organized around Chloe's needs. But why? It was the question that had haunted my life. The reasons are often complex and have more to do with your parents' own histories and unmet needs than with you or your sister, she said gently. But what's important for you to understand is that it was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their limitations. Those words were a key, unlocking a door in my mind. For the first time, I started to see the favoritism not as a judgment on my character, but as a dysfunctional pattern, a story they had told themselves for so long that they believed it was truth. Slowly, I began to rebuild. I poured my energy into my work, where my contributions were valued. I threw myself into my home, my sanctuary. I repainted the guest room a vibrant teal, erasing the ghost of the nursery. I planted a garden, digging my hands into the rich Oregon soil and nurturing new life. Each act was a declaration of independence. My chosen family, Audrey, Michael, and a few other close friends, rallied around me. My house, once the site of a painful battle, became a haven for our weekly dinners, a place filled with laughter and easy camaraderie. 3 months after the incident, an unexpected text message appeared on my phone. It was from Liam. "Brooke, I know this is out of the blue. I wanted to apologize for my part in what happened. I knew it was wrong, and I wasn't strong enough to stand up to your parents and Chloe. That's my failure, not yours. Chloe had the baby yesterday. A girl. We named her Lily. I understand if you want nothing to do with us, but I felt you should know." I stared at the message for a long time. A niece. Lily. An innocent new life, untangled from the knots of our past. After taking a deep breath, I typed a reply. "Thank you for telling me, Liam. And thank you for the apology. It means a lot. Congratulations on your daughter. I'm going to need more time, but I hope one day I can meet her." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. A tiny seed of hope planted in scorched earth. The path forward is still uncertain. The relationship with my parents and sister is a ruin, and I don't know if it can ever be rebuilt into what it once was, or, more accurately, into what I always wished it could be. But something new is growing in its place. A stronger sense of self. A deeper appreciation for the family I've chosen. A quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can withstand the storm and still be standing. I've learned that setting boundaries isn't an act of aggression, but an act of self-love. I've learned that true family doesn't demand your sacrifice, it celebrates your strength. And I've learned that home isn't just a structure of wood and nails, it's the sacred space you build within yourself, a place of safety and worth that no one can ever take away. 6 months have passed now. Life has a gentle rhythm again. My garden is thriving. My friendships are deeper than ever. I even started dating someone new, a kind architect named Daniel who, when I finally told him the story, just shook his head and said, "Good for you. You did what you had to do." His simple, unconditional validation was like a drink of cool water. Last week, I met Lily. Liam brought her to a park halfway between our homes. Holding her, this tiny, perfect person, I felt not anger or resentment, but a fierce, protective love. I want her to grow up knowing an aunt who is strong, happy, and whole. An aunt who learned, the hard way, to stand up for herself. My relationship with the rest of my family remains a work in progress, conducted at a careful distance. There are occasional, tentative texts. A birthday card from my mother with a simple, "thinking of you." It's not the warm, easy family I see in movies, but it's real. And perhaps, in its own broken way, it's a start. My house is quiet these days, but it's a peaceful quiet. It's the quiet of a sanctuary earned. And I've come to realize that the battle for this house was never really about the house at all. It was about the battle for myself. And that is a battle I am so grateful I finally had the courage to win.